Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the LEGO Inspiration series. In this series, I aim to cover the community's builds to help you get out of a mocking block or just give you some ideas for your next project or something you might currently be working on, and let you realize just how creative you can be by inspiring you by seeing some other really cool stuff. This episode today, we're going to be covering castle builds. So I've kind of got some three different but really cool mocks today to help you, get inspired. Anyway, let us begin. The first mock we have today is by Derfel Cardan, or Luke Watkins. He, in my opinion, is probably the best castle builder online, and probably just one of the best builders ever, in my honest opinion. This mock is called Hexvale Cottage. I'm sure just by looking at it, you're already blown away, because I totally am. But one of the things that I think is very clever is if you look at the landscape here, you'll notice a couple friends colors have been used. I believe this color is like a sort of... is called, look, I'll get it up when I finish editing. This is the color on Bricklink. But that's an awesome use of Friends colors in what's definitely not a Friends build. And it's cool how you can use sort of really odd colors to achieve actually a really cool look. It kind of looks like sort of dead, dying grass in like a sort of patch that maybe something's been in for a while. It's genius, in my opinion. Another thing that's also really clever is this snot wall here. Now, for those of you who don't know what snot means, snot stands for studs not on top. It's essentially a technique where you place bricks on the side, often using a lot of these kind of bricks. And it often can allow for a lot more detail that you normally wouldn't get with just placing bricks on top of each other. Kind of allows for a lot of depth and just overall looks really nice, which is very much evident in this wall here. Something that I think Derfel is very good at is achieving a very cool level of detail. If you look around, there's a lot of there's some logs on the side there, there's a couple barrels with some tools in them and stuff. You've got like awnings over the windows and the door there. He really has a very nice eye for detail, and that's something that Derfel Cardan very much excels at, and it's kind of, in a way, his building style. I may be getting this quote wrong, but the way he describes his build is putting in the details that others don't even bother to do. And something else that I may as well start covering it now. Derfel Cardan has a guide on Eurobricks. I'll post a link in the description. I highly recommend that you look at it because he essentially tells you how he builds, and it's essentially instructions for building some of his stuff. He kind of doesn't necessarily just tell you what to do or how to build it. He also kind of teaches you. I've read this guide maybe 10 times. It's very helpful. So much of what I know about Castle I've learnt from this guide. And essentially some of the concepts it covers is building realistically. You know, if there's a big cliff, would there be rocks nearby? Like, rocks just don't suddenly appear out of nowhere. There'd be, little splotches of it. Building how nature itself would be. For example, the river would have sort of carved out the rocks, so you build that first, and then you build the houses and the walls and the trees, because they would have grown up and stuff. So you build kind of in the way that nature itself actually allows for things to build and grow and be built upon, which sort of just creates a more sort of natural look to the mock. I'm not going to cover all the concepts, because I highly recommend that you actually read it, but I certainly recommend that you look there, because that if you want inspiration, that right there is the perfect thing for it. So yeah, like I said, there's a high level of realism in all of his castle mocks. The level of detail in the stone and the sort of decaying aspects on the top of the roof is just perfect. It looks straight out of real life, but put into Lego. So overall, another amazing mock from Derfel Cardan. The next mock we have today is by Cottage, and is called Forestman and Wolfpack Brickheadz. These essentially are just custom Brickheadz, right? No different from the Marvel DC ones that we've got, which in my opinion is really cool, because I know often I'll build stuff and I'll sit down and I'll get like 70 base plates out and bring over like 12 piles of Lego and be like, I'm gonna build the biggest castle in the world. And sometimes you can get burnt out from that because, I don't know, it takes forever, you just don't have the time, and all sorts of things come up. So why not think kind of smaller and build something like this? Another really cool thing about it is they're essentially brickhead versions of old castle minifigures, like the Wolfpack guys and the Forestman, hence the name. And that's awesome. Kind of a way to kind of rebuild your childhood. Definitely plays on the nostalgia card, which nostalgia is the most powerful force in the world. So Perfect. So yeah, I definitely think you don't necessarily need to overcomplicate it. Just take the general Brickheadz format and build some of your favorite characters, whether they're castle or not. And I think these are two really good examples of it. For example, there's a really awesome part use for the hair on the Wolfpack guy with the little claw pieces for sort of his fringe. Also cool to see the shield placed on the torso there. Looks exactly like the actual torso. And also how the hair's been done on the Forestman with all the cheese slopes for hair, and then the shaping on the hat is very effective and very good, as well as using some of those stem pieces for arrows. Very, very cool part uses throughout this. And I think the scale kind of allows for that. It kind of makes for some really easy part uses to get. And given the size, you can kind of put more thought and more time into it. Because a lot of people always complain they don't have time. And the best excuse to beating that is think around that, build something smaller, then you'll definitely have the time. So I think these are a really cool example of just sort of quick, fun builds that, you can easily do. The next mock we have today is Cone Castle by Kai NRG Geneva. This is an awesome build, and like I was saying before about sort of thinking smaller, this is a microscale build. Essentially what microscale is, for those of you who don't know, is just building in a smaller scale that isn't minifigure scale. So maybe you're like, but I really want to build a really big castle mock, Ben. Well, maybe you can build the exact same mock, but in a smaller scale. And something that's really cool about that is it allows you to achieve, technically, a much bigger result, but in a smaller space. For example, if this was minifigure scale, this would be freaking huge. There's so many trees there. That's essentially a whole forest, and then that castle's also huge. But you're able to achieve it in a smaller scale. And certainly something with microscale, you're able to play a lot more with parts. Like all those trees are built out of stem pieces. The rockwork, I guess, doesn't take too many pieces. And then you've got some awesome part usages with the minifigure hands as flags, which looks great with them blowing in the breeze. And then you're also able to use some Technic bricks on the side there for like window pieces, and also those cone parts for the top of the towers. In my opinion, microscale is perfect to be able to just play with parts, and often you get to achieve some really, really cool part usages, which is so much fun to do. Something else that's really cool about this mock is, as you can see with the stems and the cones and the flags, it's the same piece but repeated a lot. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, it actually creates a nice sort of sense of unity and harmony in it, which is awesome. And it's certainly something that I think works not just with microscale, but with everything. You're able to take, one or two pieces that you may have a lot of, and then once you figure out a cool part use for it, you can essentially kind of spam it in the mock, I guess. And that's really cool, because it doesn't require you to break the bank on buying, $70 million worth of pieces, because you're using essentially the same piece. And a lot of sets come with a bunch of the same part. So there's no harm done in that. And it also allows you to, again, a lot of people also use the excuse of like, I just don't have enough pieces to be able to build something. Well, some mocks can use, 3 different parts, but you use 33 of that part. So there you go. Why not challenge yourself to see if you can actually build something with a limited parts count, or build something with the same few pieces used a bunch of times in some really cool part usages in clever ways. So that essentially does it for today. Essentially what we learned today is some really cool part usages, thinking small and, kind of playing with the nostalgia factor, maybe building your favorite minifigures in a larger scale, and also a level of detail. And check out the Derfel Cardan guide. It's genius. It's so helpful. Again, the link for that will be in the description. And also, all the links to the mocks you saw today will be in the description. I highly recommend that you check out everybody's flickers, and look at some of the other stuff they've built, because again, that's going to inspire you so much by seeing some things that other people built, and then studying the photos, looking at the techniques, and then doing it yourself. So that essentially does it for today's episode. If you have any suggestions for future themes or mocks that you yourself have built or that someone else has built that you'd love to see in the episode, let me know. There's some links in the description as well for some of my other social media pages, like my Instagram, my Flickr, my mock pages, and my Facebook, where you can send me a message and let me know. Or just comment in the comments, but some people don't always like to do that, so there you go, there's some options. Anyway, thank you very, very much for watching. I want to leave you today with a quote, because if something's going to inspire you, it's definitely a quote. It's a quote from the great Julia Cameron, who, if you know of her, you should definitely read her books, because they're very helpful with being less creatively blocked, specifically The Artist Way. I don't have paid advertising, I swear. Anyway, the quote is, "Art is not about thinking something up. It's the opposite, getting something down." My advice is just start building. Don't think about it, just start. Get it done, put it on the page, and there you go, you'll have something, and you'll just keep going. The hardest thing, in my opinion, is starting. Anyway, hopefully you're a little bit inspired. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode. Bye, guys.